The courtroom had witnessed chaos before, but when Malaysia Pargo rose to her feet that day, everyone realized they hadn't seen anything yet. The way she moved was deliberate, her shoulders squared, her chin lifted as if she had been waiting years for this exact moment. She didn't fidget, didn't hesitate. She exuded the kind of icy calm that makes even seasoned lawyers nervous. Every click of her heels across the floor sounded like a countdown. A half smile curved her lips, not warm, not playful, deadly. Fixing her gaze on the judge, she spoke softly, but with the weight of a hammer. "Your Honor, I have one more truth to unveil. Let's stop playing pretend." The judge tilted his head, curious but cautious. He gestured for her to proceed, perhaps expecting a document or a statement. What came next rattled the entire courtroom. Malaysia pressed play on her phone and suddenly the voice of Doug Christie, dripping with arrogance and disdain, filled the air. "Let Jackie think what she wants," Doug muttered from behind bars, his tone casual as though he was talking about a stranger. "She was always just a cover. The real game was mine. I played it in the dark." Gasps cut through the silence. Reporters froze, their pens dangling midair. Even the bailiff's stoic face tightened, his jaw clenching at the venom in Doug's words. And across the room, Jackie Christie looked like the ground had been ripped out from beneath her. Malaysia tapped her phone again, unflinching. Doug's voice returned, this time softer, more intimate. "Once I get Jackie's money in my hands, it's just you and me, babe. We vanish." The gallery erupted. Whispers clashed with gasps, and Jackie's body shook as she shot to her feet. "You used me!" she screamed, tears streaking down her cheeks, her fist slamming against the desk so hard the microphones rattled. "You lied under my roof! My marriage, my life, it was a scam!" Her voice cracked under the weight of it all, her rage tangled with grief. The judge banged his gavel, but control had already slipped away. Jackie trembled like a storm about to break apart, while Doug's recorded words kept spilling, cutting, deeper with every syllable. He laughed, cruel and mocking. "She thinks I'm coming back for her. Hell no. Once the check clears, I'm gone. She can keep the wife title, but the bank account, that's mine." Jackie staggered, trying to shout, but only broken sounds escaped her throat. Doug's voice pressed on, merciless. "You know how I keep her quiet? I feed her lies. I give her promises. Fake tears. She loves drama, so I give her a script. The baya." Courtroom gasped again, some clutching their chests as if struck. Jackie lunged toward Malaysia, her fury boiling over, and security rushed forward to hold her back. "You lying snake!" she screamed, her face twisted with betrayal. "You manipulated me! You used me!" But Malaysia didn't flinch. Her voice was steady, sharp as steel. "No, Jackie, he used all of us. I just stopped pretending." The gavel thundered as the judge demanded silence. Malaysia reached into her bag and slid a folder across to the clerk. Inside were bank receipts, line after line showing money drained from Jackie's business accounts into a private account under the name Christina Maddox. "Your husband was funneling your money to his mistress," Malaysia said coldly. "He even used your company credit card to buy her a car." Jackie collapsed into her chair, sobbing uncontrollably, her world unraveling as cameras flashed and reporters scribbled furiously. The judge leaned forward. "Are there more recordings?" Malaysia nodded. 12 more. 2 where Doug details how to hide assets from Jackie before she even filed for divorce. The gallery gasped. Jackie stood again, her voice broken. "I gave you everything," she cried, her words wobbling with devastation. "My career, my name, my loyalty. And you, while I was blind, you were writing love letters from jail." Malaysia calmly handed over another transcript. Doug's voice played again, confessing to staging rehab stories, faking emotional breakdowns, planting rumors, anything to keep public sympathy alive. He knew the fans loved a comeback, Malaysia explained flatly, so he gave them one, even if it meant destroying Jackie piece by piece. The judge, visibly shaken, declared an early recess, but Malaysia wasn't done. She walked outside, to a storm of flashing cameras and live streams. Her voice was unwavering as she faced the press. "I didn't do this to destroy Jackie," she said. I did this because she deserves the truth. Doug isn't a man. He's a shadow, a user. And today that shadow was dragged into the light. Within hours, clips of Doug's calls exploded across TikTok, racking up millions of views. Celebrities weighed in. Tamar Braxton tweeted, "I knew something was off with Doug. Prayers for Jackie Chile." Even VH1 posted, "Some truths are louder than fiction." Jackie's response was short and broken. "I may have loved a lie, but I will never again be silent for it." The next morning, Malaysia returned to court with a silent figure at her side. A tall woman in a trench coat and dark glasses. The room erupted when she revealed herself. Christie, Jackie's daughter. She took the stand, her voice trembling but resolute. "I don't believe Doug is my father." Jackie gasped, her lips trembling. "What?" she whispered. But Chantel pressed on. "I've known for years. I overheard you and Aunt Annie when I was 14. You said Doug doesn't need to know, because he already treats me better than my real father ever would." The room froze, the silence deafening. Chantel's voice cracked, but her words kept coming. "When I asked you about it, you slapped me. You told me never to bring it up again. So I stayed quiet while Doug played savior and you faked the perfect family. And now look at us, destroyed because of secrets you chose to bury." Jackie tried to beg. "Chantel, please, not here." But Chantel's anger boiled over. "No, you don't get to ask for silence now. Not after everything." She held up a paper. "I took a DNA test 6 months ago. I matched with a man named Harold Skinner. He had a relationship with you in 1998. That's when I happened. Not Doug. Him." The gallery gasped. Social media exploded. Chantel Christie trended instantly. Fans couldn't believe it. Doug raised a daughter that wasn't even his? Jackie lied for decades? And still Malaysia wasn't finished. She pulled out Doug's prison visitor log. "Jackie," she asked, "why were you visiting Doug secretly a week before trial? Getting your story straight? Offering hush money?" Jackie stammered, "I was trying to get him to come clean." But Malaysia smirked. "Really? Because this says otherwise." She pressed play. Jackie's voice. "If you say I forced you into rehab, the public will forgive you. I've done it before." Doug's reply. "So same script, different season?" Jackie's voice again. "Exactly. Play the villain, get the redemption arc. You'll be back on TV in a year. Trust me." The courtroom erupted. The judge slammed his gavel so hard the sound echoed through the walls. "Enough," he shouted. "This isn't a custody hearing anymore. This is a conspiracy circus." Jackie collapsed in her seat, broken, her lies unraveling in front of the world. The courtroom was overflowing with tension the next morning. Reporters were packed shoulder to shoulder, phones raised, recorders flashing, and cameras lined up like soldiers ready for war. Jackie sat at the defense table, shoulders slumped, her face pale and drained from a night of humiliation plastered across every headline. Malaysia Pargo walked in with calm authority, her heels echoing against the marble floor, the crowd murmuring like they already knew she hadn't come empty-handed. Everyone braced themselves because if yesterday had been shocking, today was set to be catastrophic. Jackie's hands shook as she tried to avoid eye contact with her daughter. Chantel Christie sat on the opposite side of the room, her face unreadable, her body rigid, refusing to acknowledge the mother who had silenced her for years. The judge banged his gavel. "Order," he demanded, but order had no place here. Malaysia rose, her voice cool but razor sharp. "Your Honor, yesterday was about exposing deception. Today, it's about exposing fraud." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Jackie's mouth fell open, whispering, "No," under her breath. But Malaysia didn't stop. She handed over a thick stack of bank records, every page stamped and notarized. Doug Christie siphoned more than $200,000 from Jackie's accounts, Malaysia announced, her tone sharp as steel. These weren't business transactions. They were payments to women he called mistresses, women Jackie herself once introduced as friends. Murmurs shot across the courtroom, Jackie's head shaking violently. "Lies!" she screamed, her voice breaking, but her words dissolved under the weight of the evidence. A monitor flickered on. Security footage appeared, grainy but clear enough. Doug was caught walking into a luxury hotel with Christina Maddox, the Mistress Malaysia, exposed yesterday. The timestamp was brutal. It aligned with the same week Jackie had filmed an episode, where she sobbed in therapy, swearing she was fighting to save her marriage. The gallery groaned, reporters scribbling furiously, the hypocrisy too heavy to ignore. Outside, social media exploded. Hashtags like "You are Jackie exposed" and "Ear Doug played." Her trended before the recess bell even rang. Malaysia tapped her phone again, another audio clip blaring from the speakers. Doug's voice slithered through the courtroom. "Jackie thinks she's the producer of the show? Nah, she's the product. I feed her just enough pain to make good TV. She doesn't even realize she's auditioning for me." Jackie leapt up, shrieking, "That's edited! That's a lie!" But Malaysia's glare cut her down. "These are prison calls, Jackie. Monitored, official, no editing, just truth." The silence that followed was crushing. It was crushing. Then Chantel stood, her voice carrying like a knife. "This is why I left." All eyes turned to her as she glared at her mother. "You wanted to protect your image, not me. You let Doug pretend to be my father, and you let him rob you blind, while you pretended we were perfect." Jackie crumbled, mascara running down her cheeks. "Chantel, please, not here." But Chantel snapped back. "No, not anymore. You silenced me when I was 14. You slapped me when I asked about my real father. You don't get to silence me now." She lifted a folded document. "I took a DNA test. I matched with Harold Skinner, the man you were with in 1998. That's..." "When I happened, Doug isn't my father, and you knew it all along." The courtroom gasped so loudly it felt like the walls shook. Jackie sobbed uncontrollably, burying her face in her hands. The gallery erupted into murmurs, and social media outside ignited again with Courtroom Chantel speaks. Malaysia stepped forward, unfazed. From her file, she pulled out property deeds. 2 years ago, Doug quietly removed Jackie's name from joint holdings. Houses, stocks, retirement accounts. She was living in a fantasy marriage while Doug legally erased her existence. Holding the papers high, Malaysia delivered the fatal blow. "You weren't just lied to, Jackie. You were erased." Jackie collapsed back into her chair, her body trembling, her empire slipping through her fingers in real time. The judge rubbed, his forehead exasperated, but Malaysia wasn't done. She clicked her phone once more. Jackie's own voice spilled from the speakers, recorded in a private conversation with Doug. "If you say I forced you into rehab, the public will forgive you. I've done it before. Play the villain, get the redemption arc. You'll be back on TV in a year. Trust me." Doug's voice followed, mocking, "Same script, different season." The courtroom exploded. Gasps, shouts, phones flying into the air to record. The judge slammed his gavel. "Enough!" he shouted. "This is no longer a custody hearing. This is a conspiracy circus." By the afternoon, the internet was in flames. Blogs cut together Doug's recordings into brutal montages, side by side with Jackie's old interviews. Memes mocked her as Queen of Delusion. Even celebrities joined in, throwing shade with tweets and Instagram posts. That evening, Jackie's stylist went live, tearfully confessing, "She made me lie. She made me cover for her while Doug drained her accounts. If I refused, she threatened to ruin me." It was the final knife. Jackie's empire wasn't just collapsing, it was being buried by the very people she once controlled. By nightfall, VH1 released a statement suspending Jackie from future episodes. Sponsors pulled out. Doug's bail was denied. Jackie returned to her mansion only to find the locks had been changed. It was no longer legally hers. She stood outside, cameras flashing, as her neighbors whispered from across the street for the first time in her career, there were no producers to spin the narrative, no allies to soften the blow. Just silence, humiliation, and the cold truth echoing through the night. The courtroom had been labeled a circus of conspiracies by the judge, but by the time proceedings resumed, it was more like a battlefield with no survivors. Every seat in the gallery was filled, the air heavy with tension. And outside the courthouse, cameras were stacked 3 rows deep, news anchors fighting over airtime. Jackie's name was everywhere, scrolling across news tickers, blasted on gossip blogs, dissected on YouTube live streams. What had started as whispers about Doug's betrayal had morphed into an international scandal that now had legal, financial, and personal stakes so high that no one knew how Jackie would walk away without being obliterated. She looked like she had aged years in a single week. Her shoulders sagged, her eyes were swollen from crying, her wig sat slightly askew as though she no longer cared to keep up the appearance. For decades, Jackie Christie had been the woman who strutted into reunion specials and dared anyone to challenge her. Now she sat small, fragile, like a queen whose crown had been melted down in front of her. And the cruelest part was that the fire hadn't even finished burning. Because Malaysia Pargo still had evidence tucked away, and she wasn't letting Jackie crawl out of this wreckage without facing every buried truth. The judge entered, already weary. "This court has been inundated with accusations," he warned, his voice stern. "Today, we will decide whether to move forward with fraud charges." But before he could even continue, Malaysia stood, her expression calm but her presence commanding. "Your Honor," she said, her voice echoing. "Yesterday exposed financial deception. Today, we address manipulation." The room buzzed. Jackie groaned, burying her face in her hands as Malaysia produced yet another folder, her evidence seemingly endless. The first document was a series of therapy notes leaked from a counselor Jackie and Doug had seen during their public marriage. "Crisis," Malaysia read aloud, her voice steady. "Client admits to staging emotional breakdowns for camera crews, stating, quote, 'Sometimes you have to create a crisis to control the outcome.'" Gasps filled the courtroom. Jackie's eyes widened, in panic, shaking her head violently. "That was taken out of context," she shrieked, but Malaysia didn't even acknowledge her. She held up the transcripts like a sword slicing through Jackie's last defense, and then came the footage. A grainy video played on the screen, captured during a private therapy session. Jackie, unaware she was being recorded, leaned across from Doug and said, "If you play the villain, I'll handle the narrative. The public loves a redemption arc. They'll forgive you if I make them." Doug chuckled in response. Same. Script. Different season. The gallery erupted, reporters fumbling over each other to type every word. Jackie screamed, "That's illegal! That's a violation!" But her voice was drowned out by the sound of hundreds of phones recording. The damage was irreversible. The judge slammed his gavel, but his eyes betrayed his shock. "Order!" he demanded. But the truth was already trending worldwide. Hashtags like "Toz Jackie scripted it" and "Pauser redemption fraud" flooded social media. Bloggers uploaded side-by-side comparisons of Jackie's past on-camera breakdowns with Malaysia's newly exposed evidence. Every crocodile tear, every staged walkout, every sudden makeup moment was replayed through the lens of manipulation, and fans realized how deeply they had been tricked. Jackie tried to fight back. She rose to her feet, her voice breaking, her body trembling. "You don't understand what I had to survive. You don't know what I had to build just to stay visible in this industry." Her tears flowed freely, mascara streaking her face. But Malaysia wasn't moved. She stepped closer, her eyes cold, her voice sharp. "No, Jackie, you weren't building a legacy. You were building a prison, and now you're locked inside it." The words landed like a guillotine, slicing through Jackie's last attempt at sympathy. The gallery fell silent, stunned by the precision of Malaysia's strike. But then came the final twist, one no one expected. A new witness was called forward, escorted by federal investigators. A woman stepped into the courtroom, her presence commanding instant attention. She introduced herself as Regina Hayes, Doug's ex from years ago. She took the stand and dropped a bomb that detonated everything. "Jackie showed up at my house once," Regina testified, her voice steady. "She had a camcorder and a fake letter from the police. She said if I didn't give her dirt on Doug, she would ruin me publicly. She manipulated me just like she manipulates everyone." The courtroom gasped. Jackie's body shook violently, and even her legal team looked blindsided. The judge's patience snapped. "Enough," he barked. "This court is now considering federal investigation into document tampering, financial fraud, and perjury." Jackie collapsed into her chair, her sobs uncontrollable. She looked around for allies, for friends, for anyone willing to stand with her. But there were none. The very people she had leaned on for decades had either abandoned her or turned against her. She was alone, drowning in the mess she had created. Outside, Malaysia addressed the press once again. Cameras clicked furiously, her words clear and deliberate. Jackie Christie built a kingdom of lies. She weaponized loyalty, she manipulated her daughter, and she tried to silence anyone who spoke against her. But today, the lies collapsed. The truth will not be silenced anymore. Chantel stood beside her, her eyes wet but strong, nodding silently. The crowd cheered, booed, shouted questions, but Malaysia didn't flinch. She had done what she came to do, tear down the mask Jackie had worn for years. By evening, the fallout was everywhere. TMZ ran a headline: Jackie Christie canceled, fraud and betrayal exposed. Twitter threads compiled every lie she had ever told on camera. YouTube creators dissected the trial in hour-long breakdowns. Brands issued public statements severing ties. VH1 scrubbed her face from promotional material, and the cruelest blow of all, her daughter, her blood, legally filed to change her last name. Chantel Christie was gone. In her place, Chantel Skinner. A name Jackie could no longer control, no longer exploit, no longer script. Jackie returned home to find a letter waiting at her gate. It was from VH1, cold and final. Effective immediately, Jackie Christie is barred from all future production. Any attempt to re-enter studio premises will be treated as trespassing. The same woman who had built her reputation on being untouchable had just been banned like a common intruder. She collapsed in her foyer, staring at the walls of a house. She no longer legally owned, her sobs echoing through the empty halls. The empire she had bragged about, fought for, bled for, it was gone. Meanwhile, Malaysia didn't throw a party. She didn't post a petty caption or laugh in front of cameras. She simply walked away, her heels clicking against the courthouse steps, her silence louder than any victory speech. For her, the war was over. Jackie had been exposed, Doug was finished, and Chantel had reclaimed her truth. The rest was just noise. And yet, the internet buzzed with one question, one cliffhanger that wouldn't die. Was this really the end for Jackie Christie? Or was this just another script, another setup, another twisted attempt to turn tragedy into ratings? Because if there was one thing the world had learned, it was that in Jackie's universe, silence never lasted long.